All right, good morning, everyone, and certainly I'm pleased to be here with my partners in Transit Safety Governance team to talk about this important topic. I want to introduce in particular Andre Corbould, the City Manager, Cheryl Whiskey-Jack, the Executive Director from Bantero Traditional Healing Society, and Dwayne Hunter over here, who's our Director of Transit Safety. As well, David Jones, Branch Manager, City of Edmonton Community Standards and Neighborhoods. Sean Toad is here from us as well, Executive Director of Information Management Intelligence, Edmonton Police Service. These folks will have more detailed statistical analysis if need be at the end. Tomorrow during our commission meeting at EPS, we'll be releasing our 2022 citywide crime statistics along with our annual report. So that will be dealt with tomorrow. Today we're going to specifically talk about one area of focus, in particular where we see trends of concern, and that is certainly our transit system. This is an area of shared concern between all of us. For all of us, it's a focus area that we've come together to address starting in 2022. But we note the following throughout the course of the year. Dispatch calls for police to transit locations has risen in 21 to 22 by 31.4%, or 680 events. Dispatch calls for violent occurrences in transit locations increased by 52.8%, or 210 additional events between 2021 and 2022. Overall, transit represents 4% of our citywide violent crime in LRT or transit centers. Over the past 3 years, crime severity has trended higher in transit areas as compared to citywide. Between 2021 and 2022, we saw a 12% increase above the rest of the city. 70% of the violent crime occurring on transit was random in nature. And I want to be very clear on that, random in nature, which means generally two people not known to each other. These are stark numbers, and we are all concerned about the responsibility to manage what we see here. We know that the numbers are not an anomaly. Violence is up in the city, and particularly in our downtown core. We are not alone in experiencing these challenges. We have heard examples from across the country, but we do need a made in Edmonton response to transit. Just as we've done in our downtown core, we need the right people in the right places with the right authorities to manage these problems. And that is why we are here together as a group. We have all the pieces in our city to deal with the problem, but our individual tasks need to coordinate better, which is what our transit safety plan is about. The EPS is pleased to be a part of the Transit Safety Partnership with Bantero Traditional Healing Society and the City of Edmonton. Violence reduction, and I want to be clear on this, requires a collaboration of diverse skills bring to the table with the vital addressing the problem of violence. Currently, the Bantero Traditional Healing Society is partnered with our Human-Centered Engagement and Liaison, or better known as our HELP unit, which identifies those most at risk for victimization, offending, so that the appropriate help and resources can be offered. We have also partnered with the city and others to launch several community safety teams in the downtown core and at several central LRT stations as part of the Healthy Streets Operations Center. The multidisciplinary teams, which involve several community stakeholders, focus on high visibility, community engagement, and allow the appropriate stakeholder to provide the support best suited for the specific situation. We have to, and we have to be better on enforcement, on elements of violence. We do see in our community, including with transit, by dealing with those responsible, and I want to be very clear, those responsible need to be held accountable. This isn't a question of victimizing the most vulnerable. It's about applying the right solutions and bringing together the right partner forward in a manner which ensures safety for all. We have a growing transit system, and there is more growth coming. We have to address our safety challenges and perceptions now so it is viable, desirable choice to all of us. And perception matters too. Let's not forget about that. The presence of social disorder and violence has no place in our community, especially when it targets one's sense of security. If we hope to establish reliable public transportation safety needs to be at the forefront, we're here together because we all have to be part of the solution. And I just again want to thank our partners for being here with us today. We need a balanced approach to violence and social disorder on transit. We need to offer help to those in need, and accountability to those who offer only disruption and victimization for their own personal gain. I am confident that we have the right people to tackle these challenges. We all agree we have lots of work to do, and I think there's lots of things that we can continue to do and grow this even more in the coming days and the coming months. I'd like to now welcome the City Manager, Andre Corbel, to speak, followed by Cheryl Whiskey-Jack from Bantaro. Then we will move to questions. Andre?
Thanks, Chief McPhee. Good morning. Safety and security in transit spaces remains a top priority. And while the data EPS is sharing today helps demonstrate the depth of the issue we're all facing, I'm confident that we do have the right people at the table to work towards a solution for our city and for our residents. Without question, everyone deserves to feel safe in transit spaces. As a regular LRT rider myself, I see firsthand some of the challenges we are here discussing today. And before speaking more specifically about the actions we've taken, I do want to provide a little context when it comes to our transit system. Every week, about 1 million bus and LRT trips are taken, and the vast majority of those trips happen without incident. At the same time, that's not good enough. We're very concerned about the number of rides that result in rider feeling unsafe, and we're taking steps to address those concerns. I'd like to thank our partners, including EPS and Bantaro, for their work to make improvements and help advance the actions of the Transit Safety Plan, which was approved by Council in February of 2022. So let's recap what's been done. The city has hired a Director of Transit Safety to oversee and lead this work, and this has helped immensely and will continue to help with the coordination of assets across different collective organizations working together. We've also hired an additional transit security dispatcher to support the Transit Watch program, so we have greater oversight of the surveillance cameras in use across the system. We continue to work collaboratively to increase the presence of security, peace officers, EPS, and outreach workers as well, and this is focused on having the right presence at the right time in the right location. Transit peace officer recruitment is ongoing, and there are currently over 90 frontline folks working in transit systems. In 2023, we'll see an additional 22 more colleagues in transit spaces this fall, and that'll bring our total to 112, which is a 21% increase in TPOs from last year. And when we started this about a year ago, we had about 54 transit peace officers that were actually in stations because we were under recruited in some of our positions, so we're really ramping that up. These positions include both transit peace officers and one transit peace officer sergeant for leadership. And once on board, we will be prioritizing additional staff for overnight teams, proactive enforcement, and presence on the bus system. Areas of focus like community outreach transit teams have doubled over the same period in the last year. The additional funding through 23 and 26 budget provided for sustainable funding for the community outreach transit team. And the city and Bantaro are currently determining timelines and details around the expansion of 2 additional teams. And once staffed, COP will have 7 teams total. Washroom attendants have been added in several locations and to further support safe, clean access to transit washrooms. All 18 washrooms remain open and with enhanced safety and cleaning measures in place. As another part of the city's efforts to make transit safer and more inclusive, next week the city will be launching a bystander awareness campaign to help provide safe actions for riders in situations of gender-based harassment, violence, or discrimination. And this campaign was developed based on recommendations from the United Nations Safe Cities Community Collaboration Committee. The city will continue to activate spaces on transit property to create more vibrant places for everyone to enjoy, from conducting outreach activities, having musical acts in the system, to commissioning art to support talented artists in the city. And the city has expanded its transit safety plan to include all connecting pedways and spaces in and around transit stations. Now, as I've said, while we've made significant progress on a number of fronts, we still have a lot of work to do. Council has also allocated additional resources for housing, homelessness prevention initiatives, as well as significant investments in crisis diversion, which will help deal with some of the root causes. But I want to be clear, we cannot tackle these changes alone. There are root causes that need to be addressed that are directly contributing to these issues, and it reinforces the need for further targeted measures and investments in addressing the issues we're seeing today. These root causes include mental health and addictions, which directly impact the drug poisoning crisis, the need for better shelter spaces and housing solutions for people in the city. And this is something we'll continue to advocate and collaborate with other orders of government on. And it's important we all recognize that transit is a setting where some of these issues are most visible, but transit itself is not the root cause of this problem. Now, I just want to take a moment to thank our transit staff and riders who show up every day in their commitment to transit, whether it's providing excellent service to Edmontonians or as riders getting to the places you need to go. You do keep our service moving. I thank our operators, our maintenance folks, cleaners, security guards, transit peace officers, and everyone who uses the Edmonton Transit system, as well as our partners at EPS and Bent Arrow. Through this increased transit ridership, we've achieved broader city plan goals by helping to build a sense of community and belonging amongst Edmontonians, enhancing community safety and well-being, and preserving our environment and contributing to a vibrant downtown. In fact, just this January, the city reached an important ridership milestone. Bus ridership averaged over 1.2 million rides per week. More eyes on the system will help with natural surveillance and contributes to our other overall efforts to enhance safety. And now that bus ridership has recovered, we look to continue to build that momentum and safety as part of our key pillar of work. Transit safety is critical for continuing to grow the transit ridership, but also for economic recovery, downtown revitalization, and community safety and well-being. I'm confident that our ongoing work will lead to improvements through the transit system and help increase safety for everyone using the transit spaces in the network. In addition to the actions underway, the transit safety investments have laid a strong foundation for longer-term change and permanent change. Through increased collaboration, commitment, and information sharing, with a view to continuing achieving our milestones and making improvements, we will increase safety for everyone. And it really is about getting the right people in the right places, doing the right things in this collaborative approach to achieving transit safety. So thanks for the opportunity, and I will now turn things over to Cheryl Whiskey-Jack, the Executive Director of the Bent Arrow Traditional Healing Society.
Thanks, Andre. Good morning, everyone. Transit is a vital service in Edmonton, and Bent Arrow recognizes the concerns its users and the community have. The pandemic has had a devastating impact on many individuals, particularly those who are struggling to make ends meet. We have seen a significant increase in homelessness and mental health issues, which are having a profound impact on many individuals who were previously in the margins. These community members seek transit lines as a form of safety themselves, safety from harsh weather, and from those who may wish to do them harm. To address this issue, our partnership with the city and the police has been critical in supporting marginalized individuals who have been negatively impacted by COVID-19. By bringing our agencies together, we are able to leverage each other's strengths to better support these citizens in the most impactful way possible. We are already seeing the positive impacts of this partnership and the real differences that it is making in the lives of marginalized people. Our focus is on providing comprehensive support that addresses not only their immediate needs, but also helps to address the underlying issues that have contributed to their current situation. We are committed to working together to make supports available so that they receive the support and assistance they need to get through these difficult times. In 2022, we had more than 700 engagements that result in a referral to a support based on identified needs, including transportation to a community organization. Other supports for individuals include in the areas of housing and health, addictions and mental health, but also with connections to their family or hometown, with ID and other resources and other needs that they may have. An example of this is a community member that we connected while patrolling the Churchill station. This community member was laid out on the ground and quite intoxicated. They claimed that they were robbed and robbed of all their documents, which had led them to losing their job and apartment due to substance use. Income support was crucial to their recovery, so COT, Community Outreach Transit Team, helped them file a police report to secure a postal address, open a new bank account, and advocated for them to have income support despite numerous barriers. We were finally able to confirm their first payment had been received, which was also critical to being able to apply for and receive a replacement permanent residence card. The community member was accepted into a 1-year sober living program, to which they are now doing well in, and COT looks forward to reporting on their future success. This is just one example of the impact of this partnership is having on marginalized individuals in our community. Community safety is extremely important, and we will continue to work to help improve safety on transit so that the community members may feel secure while riding transit. Thank you.
We'll now open it up the floor to questions. Just, I think if anybody wants to just state where you're from and who you're asking the question to, and then we'll certainly go from there.
Arthur Green, Western Standard.
You want to run this there, boss? Okay.
You said that the transit crime rose roughly 31%. Can this be accounted to the city getting rid of the policy which keeps people out of transit, which is the loitering policy?
You know, I think we've spent enough time trying to deal with that and reinstating that. I think what I would say to this, and talking to Andre and certainly our partners here, is I think if you look at the future, I think we got a lot of good things in place right now. And what we need to do is actually do an evaluation of what is the appropriate staffing levels that are required to keep people safe, which has been done in many other communities. And what I mean by that is I think we all agree, I know we all agree here, that we all belong there and we all need to be there for safety. But the reality is we can't no longer just be there part-time. It needs to know, what do we need police for in their authorities? What do we need the TPOs for their authorities? How many outreach teams do we need in teams? And then how do we actually connect our video so we become more effective? And certainly not pressure on Dwayne Hunter, but I'm very confident in his abilities to get us there. So I guess there's enough blame to go around right now. The reality is we're focusing on what we need to do going forward in the future.
I posted a video a couple of days ago of a woman in a transit station beating out windows with a hammer. Will EPS sweep the transit system and check people for weapons?
Again, we have all the different authorities, but we need to figure out what that staffing model looks like. But people having weapons in transit is not good. And yes, we will take weapons away from people. And yes, we will arrest people. And yes, those that need to be in the justice system, they'll use the justice system. And the other side of that is the people that are there that are vulnerable. We also have that side covered. I think the focus is here now is how do we put this together and how does it become sustainable? I can tell you from a police perspective, we're trying to move a bunch of different things to accommodate this. And I think going forward, we need to know exactly what we need, how many TPOs we need, because as you know, very different authorities. And we got another one brewing now with different authorities with the sheriffs. And I think there's enough work for everybody right now, if you hear what I'm saying. And I think let's focus on what we need to be successful and not what the problems are.
Just move over to Carly again. If the speakers wouldn't mind just trying to repeat the questions or so we can get it recorded, that would be awesome.
For sure. I'm hoping, Chief, if you could talk about, is this mostly LRT or are we also seeing issues on buses?
Well, there's both, but there's differences, right? And there's also differences in the time of day that when we're called. And I mean, the escalation of violence, and as Andre and Cheryl have said, we have a mental health and addictions crisis. And when we have a meth crisis, we've said this at least 50 times, if not more, there's violence. And the reality is that's why you have a combined response. So you send the right response. But the answer can't be from one group to call another group, to call another group, to call another group, and then we get there. I think we can do a better job, which we've been working at extensively with the leadership of Dwayne Hunter to try to get there. So We're talking a lot of the violence is in LRT, but it's not exclusive to transit as well.
And just I'd like all three speakers to address
'Kay.
this. This is the second year we've had sort of an announcement on transit, right as the weather's about to get better. And Cheryl spoke about how when it's cold, people seek refuge. What's going to happen to make sure that we don't just say, hey, summer's here and things are better, but this continues into next winter?
I'll speak on my behalf because I think I've answered it from BPS perspective is we need to know what the team and the staffing model is and what it looks like, and we need to build it out to be there. But just to be very clear, somebody being cold or somebody going down there to stab somebody or to beat somebody up or to assault somebody is never okay to be in there, period. So we got to make sure that we're looking at this from both angles, where the diversion piece is critical, and I think we all need to be part of that, but there's also an enforcement piece of this, and we got to start getting this conversation back to the middle ground where it's not the same solution for everybody. The reality is you need diverse skill sets down there to ensure safety, and as I've said many times, you can't have well-being without safety. So we distinctly think we all belong in this picture. It's not one or the other.
So thanks for the question. One of the things that we're noticing is that, pre-COVID, there were the usual suspects out in the community that were houseless, that we were all trying to provide services to support those folks. COVID with isolation, mental health was impacted, addictions, were impacted by that. And we're seeing people who are previously in the margins who are now experiencing houselessness and severe crisis with their mental health and some addictions. And so we're finding with our response in this partnership that those are the folks that are terrified. They're newly houseless, they're out there and they're looking for a life raft. And we have been having success with those folks in being able to connect them to supports. I don't pull the levers for funding around these issues. And yes, we know we're a winter city. Yes, we know that winter is going to come again in a few months. And we have tirelessly advocated for a response that is in the warmer months to prepare for the weather that we know is coming. And we'll continue to do that. But there are levers that we simply don't have the ability to pull. So we'll just continue to advocate on that front.
Yeah, maybe I'll just, to your first question, I'll just sort of explain that, we're seeing two really things change compared to where we started on this last year, and that is the additional resources that are coming to bear in all three categories of the collective team here. And then we're also seeing an increased level of integration. So as I mentioned in my opening remarks, having a director of transit safety that reports directly to Cheryl, the chief, and I creates a real integrated process in regard to all the assets on the ground and how they're working together. So we used to have a TPO or two TPOs patrolling by themselves in different locations. Now we're getting much more collaboration where we've got EPS and TPOs and then the COT teams and the health teams all working together and then laying over that with HSOC. So that increased integration is making a real difference. As to the timing of this, I think it's a good time because it is a year out from the original transit safety plan having been approved by council. We've got some more resources, we've got some more work to do, and of course the statistics are what the statistics are, and we want to be very transparent about what that is and what that means and what we're going to do about it, and that's what we've tried to highlight today.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just want to pass on to David Wasik, CCTV.
Yeah.
If you could verbalize, I guess if not the most dangerous areas of the system, perhaps those areas we've seen operators, ridership, people affected, from Southgate to Coliseum Station to the Rogers Station. What are sort of the worst areas that need the most attention?
Do you want to take that, Dwayne? I mean, we can certainly highlight that. We have it in our statistics.
I'd like it from some.
Oh, you want it to come? Yeah. So, when you break these out in relation to dispatch calls for service, so not all of this is violence, keep in mind. These are when we're called, but generally when we're called, it is a escalated level. Churchill, from 2021 to 22 saw an 84.2. Belvedere saw 45.7. Clairview saw 58.1. Eau Claire saw 133.3% increase. Now, there's a couple things here that I want to take back to the original question that you had is when Andre talks about the plan that we built and got approved, Dwayne has only been in this position since the end of September. So at the end of the day, I think a lot of what we're dealing with, and you've heard me say this, Dave, a lot of this is predicted, and we knew some of this was coming. What we're looking for here is this partnership to build out what is the sustainable model going forward, so we're not back here every year talking about a trend. And so I think we've got a lot of things in place right now. I think you've got a leadership team that sees that we all have a role in it. You've got an executive director. You've got people from both of our organizations, all of our union folks that see that we need a collaborative effort. What we don't have is what does the actual staffing model look like for the right authorities in the right places to bring these numbers down. Because whether it's a 5% or a 20% increase, it really doesn't matter. If somebody's being hurt to the point that was made here, being beaten or hitting with something or stabbed or Lord help us what else, or open air drug use that's scaring small children and families, none of that's acceptable. And that's not acceptable from anything. The difference is to have multiple dimensional response to get the right response to the right individual in need, from everything from a justice response to, as Cheryl's articulated, to have an outreach response and everything in between. Some of it might just be, some of the duties that are done every day and done well by the TPOs is directing people and adding visibility so people are deterred from doing this. I really want to get away from just blaming. I want to really get away from I've had enough blame. Everybody points fingers, and the reality is I think we got something here good, but it needs to be built and sustained.
How about then some practical advice? You talk to people with fractured orbital bones, cheek bones. What do you say to them? Do they not interact with people? Do you keep your head down? What do you do?
Well, first of all, they shouldn't have to be scared in a public transit situation. So we get that as we hear it all the time. Not necessarily me. I get the emails like you get in the letters, but our day-to-day officers hear it every day. And I think there's also fear with some of the staff working down there, but the reality is we have to take the spaces back. And that can't be okay for somebody to worry about that. And I think we collectively accept that responsibility. I certainly accept that responsibility. But from us as a police service, now I'm just going to speak about EPS, we can't just keep moving resources from one end of the city to the other end of the city, because all it does is push them back out into the other areas of the city. So we have to look at the collective solutions, the staffing model, and make sure that we have all those services in place with all of us at the table to actually make it better. So what we tell them is we're going to deal with it. It's not acceptable. And we need to get that faith and confidence and trust back. As Andre said, ridership is up, but that's one measurement. The other piece is a lot of people ride transit because they have to, because it's their livelihoods depend, and we need to make sure that they feel safe and comfortable and don't have to tell those stories. Yeah. Hey, Natasha.
Cheryl, I actually wanted to ask you about the caught teens and then probably both of you, but the correlation between disorder and then violent crimes. And you had mentioned the rise in homelessness. We all know that it doubled during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
What is the correlation here between disorder, people being scared, newly homeless, and then this huge spike in violent crime? Or calls for
I don't know if that's a question for me.
Okay.
I think I'll.
Yeah.
Okay, but you talk about helping people
Yep.
who become newly homeless.
Yep.
What's your sense of how much, let's say, how much the COT teams are helping them
Oh.
in terms of disorder and then other calls for service?
Yeah, so that's what I appreciate about this partnership is that, we have a lane, and a certain target group that we're looking to support out there. And if it's the disorder side of things, we bring in folks that are part of the partnership that deal with the disorder pieces. We are visible, we're present, we say hello to everybody we meet in the transit centers, especially people who are looking very vulnerable. And sometimes it takes, 20, 30, 50 hellos before they see us as someone potentially that can support them. So it's just about being visible and being present and being known to them. Yeah.
And how many teams are there now?
So I think we're almost up to 7. I know for sure we're up to 5. I think the last 2 teams are teams that were, but having said that, there is like an onboarding piece. So while they're hired, it's about orienting them and making sure that they have all that they need when they are deployed out there.
How many teams do you think would be necessary to really make a difference?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, 7 is great. We saw really great things happen with 2. So we already know the impact that 7 will have. What it'll do to the numbers, time will tell.
Yeah.
Right?
You know, and I'd add to that, we also have a bunch of help teams that are above ground. And Cheryl's involved in that as well as amongst many of our other partners. And, you know, we just had our Chiefs Community Council in there last night to show them through the help building and have some of our navigators who are not police officers talking to members of the community. And I tell you, it was pretty impactful. So we see this as an essential part of everywhere we are. In relation to the other question, though, because I think Natasha hit on a very good point, and I think really this is the conversation we have to differentiate in the city of Edmonton. Homeless people don't by nature punch people, stab people, assault people, and we're trying to make this all about houselessness and homelessness, and this isn't. We have criminal element, violence, we have gang members that are in these facilities, and that's why we need a team approach, because we got to deal with both of these at the same time. So both Andre and I in our speaking notes said the right service with the right authority at the right time, and I think that's something we can't waver from.
And that's why I don't.
Sorry, I gotta just go, is there any?
We can
Why
follow
is
up.
there such a spike in violent crime in 1 year? We're differentiating between the helplessness.
Well, basically because there's no accountability. Like I've been in this room how many times listening, all we've talked about is the houselessness piece, and we haven't talked about the people that are getting overgeneralized as houselessness. So I look at it like this. I'll give you a quick example in my world how I differentiate. You come to the mall, you've got Bob. Bob is the individual that's using meth outside the mall. He's still got his faculties about him. We, since 2020, have a federal prosecutor note saying that they will not possession for simple drug use. So people that want us to charge them, that's not going to happen because they're going to be out within hours. So what do you do with Bob? Well, going forward, we need to take Bob's drugs, seize Bob's drugs. Hopefully Bob gets the message. We give him access to help or to a navigator to connect him to services. Then you have Charlie that's using fentanyl. He's outside the mall. Mom and kids got to stop and step over him, perhaps in the LRT. Sad. We need a 24/7 on-demand ride to get Charlie to that health system where he actually so he gets connected. We find out where he's from, how he became, what's his trauma, what is he involved in, and get him the supports he needs. Then you have Devin. Devin's walking around in transit in the mall. He's screaming at people. He's on something. He's scared. He needs to be arrested. He needs to be held accountable under 115.
That's not considered violent crime, is it?
Hang on. Follow it, because it can be. It's escalating. Those first 3 are the health. But then you got Evan. He's down there. He's stabbing somebody. He's punching somebody. He's doing things that you've just referred to as violent crime. Needs to be arrested. Needs to be put accountable into the system. And then you have Frank. Frank is the people taking the vulnerable checks, taking their money. They're the gangs that are infiltrating in with this, pushing the drugs. They need a police response. Here's the difference is, right now, we think that's all the same person. This doesn't think they're the same person, but that's a lot of the message that's been sent, and we need to differentiate that, and that's what we're trying to do today.
I have another question, but you mentioned gangs. Do we have a gang problem in our transit? Is that what you're saying?
We get gangs throughout our city. We've talked about this throughout. We know firsthand that gangs prey on our vulnerable in the downtown and transit everywhere else. And every police officer or peace officer will tell you that they see that regularly on a daily basis. But that's why the right authorities in the right place, that's not different than any other major city. We just need to make sure that we hold the right people accountable with the right system.
For someone from
Just sorry, Carly, I'll come back to you.
Nicole,
Hey, Nicole.
I guess just sort of a general question, whoever else wants to jump in too. I mean, given the high percentage, you said the crime is random, I think it's 70%.
Yeah.
Why do you think this partnership will ultimately be effective?
Because we have all of the things that we need to deal with the issue. We have, it's not violence. We have a TPO. We have a vulnerable person. We have our teams that are joint teams with Cheryl and her teams to actually connect them to services. We have the police there, so when it is something that's violence associated, which we're talking about, we have the ability to put them in the justice system. And then the other piece to this, which we haven't even talked about, is the whole bail reform discussion. That reality is then we need the justice system to actually look at how we separate this and we get some accountability to some of these individuals in the correctional system. Not that we forget about them, not that they can't be rehabilitated, but we got to use the right service at the right time.
And Chief, sorry,
Yeah, go ahead.
if I could just add, sorry, quickly off topic, just wanted to ask you about body cams, your thoughts on it, if you foresee any hurdles in getting them away.
You know, again, I'm glad, it's mandated, going to be legislated. That means it's going to be provincially wide. Calgary's had them, obviously, for probably 4 or 5 years. Where they make a real difference is in the accountability and transparency. Right now what you see a lot of videos posted to social media as a snapshot in time where the body cameras will actually, tell the whole story. And I got to say, our officers would love to have them. We've had them in a couple budget process. We haven't been fortunate to get them there, but I think with the province legislating a mandate and then doing it provincially wide, I think it's going to be one of those things that are absolutely going to increase transparency and legitimacy.
Okay, we're gonna have to wrap this up shortly, so sorry, Carly, just before your last question, is there any other outlet that hasn't had a chance to ask yet, that would like to ask a question? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
You all kind of chimed in on this in the thoughts a little bit generally, but I just want to see how the three of you feel about the balance here, because I know some people aren't going to be okay with just filling stations with police officers, and there's a few different things going on. So I just want to see, because how we're dealing with the balance and the plan going forward.
I'll let the others, but I think you actually answered that question. The balance, that's the key. That's why it's not all police, it's not all TPOs, and it's not all this, but I think that's what we're actually trying to do, exactly what you said, is making sure we have the right authorities and the balance.
Yeah, absolutely. We are not trying to fill up every transit train and every station with police officers all the time. It's finding the right person in the right place at the right time. And getting to an earlier question, it's not just about the spaces, which space has the most. It's about the time and space. When are things happening? So we're getting much more sophisticated now in our deployment in terms of, watching things like, is the Citadel having a performance on a Saturday night? Well, if it's having a performance, we'll help provide, the right assets at the right time for people who are parking in the library, moving over to the Citadel, doing those other events downtown. We had a very, particular approach towards the Junos this past week in terms of providing safety and vibrancy in different places. So it's not just about all in with one particular enforcement. It's about that team effort. And that's where the coordination with Dwayne helps, because we can really understand what's happening in these spaces and when we need to get to them, but not just the space, what time we need to get to them and what we need to provide as a service, whether it's outreach, support, or, if necessary, enforcement.
I guess all I'll add to that is that we're one community organization, but we're a community organization that is quite well known for working in partnership. This is a good example of one of them, but we are also a gateway to many other support services within our social network. So while we're a part of this, we are a gateway to all of those other supports that maybe we don't provide in-house.
Okay, final question from Carly. Someone is riding transit tomorrow, anyone who wants to answer this, someone is riding transit tomorrow, will they see a difference, or is this long-term?
Yeah, I think people are going to see differences every day. But it's a continuous improvement. We've got to do better. We've got to do more. And I think what people will see is a gradual difference as we field more resources, continue to get more coordinated, and get the supports people need. So it should be, again, continuous improvement.
Yeah, what you're hearing here is you got 3 agencies that says it's a priority, that are committed to changing it. I think we all know it's not going to get changed overnight, so we're not going to give anybody false hope, but we also got to give them hope. So our goal with Dwayne and the teams that we have is to continue to put some accountability into the system. So it's about everybody that wants to ride transit, feels comfortable riding transit when they want. And, that's our commitment to hopefully, we will come back with a better story next year. We have to. Thanks. Thanks, folks. Really appreciate your time.